Hello, and welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. He is the biggest YouTuber in the world. He makes more money on YouTube than any other creator. He is listed as 40th on the Forbes richest celebrities, and he is worth over $50 million. He is also in the midst of the biggest social media scandal to hit in many years. He is MrBeast, Jimmy Donaldson, famous for growing his following in the early days of YouTube by doing everything from celebrity wealth videos to dangerous stunts. He now has 312 million subscribers on YouTube, and that's just on his main channel. He also has Beast Philanthropy, MrBeast Gaming, Beast Reacts, and other channels. He is as famous as it gets in the world of social media. But right now, I'm wondering if he wishes he could make it all go away. Allegations of using racial slurs, faking his content, and sexual misconduct allegations against his friend and co-contributor have this YouTube star embattled. This is the story of MrBeast in trouble. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's get into it. James Stephen Jimmy Donaldson is born in Wichita, Kansas, and then raised mainly by nannies in Greenville, North Carolina. His parents were in the military and both worked a lot, and Jimmy spent a lot of time moving around the country to his parents' various military stations. Jimmy does not talk about his father, who is rumored to have been abusive to Jimmy's mother, Susan Perisher, and who Jimmy claims left the family when he was a young boy. We know that Jimmy's father's name is Stephen Donaldson, but other than that, we don't know much. Jimmy is totally estranged from his father, and even old blog posts written by Susan about her ex-husband have long been removed from the internet. There's a lot of secrecy surrounding Jimmy's father, but honestly, I don't think it's that deep. He was a crappy dad, and he abandoned his family. Jimmy went to Greenville Christian Academy, a very small Christian private high school, and then he went to East Carolina University for a short time before dropping out of college. While Jimmy was in college, he and his friends became somewhat obsessed with YouTube's algorithm, and they began to study the algorithm really daily. Jimmy admits to becoming completely engrossed in trying to understand the way YouTube worked, what videos it pushes, what videos it hides. He says, there was a 5-year point in my life where I was just relentlessly, unhealthily obsessed with studying virality, studying the YouTube algorithm. I woke up, I would eat Uber Eats food, and then I would sit on my computer all day just studying shit nonstop with other YouTubers. I can never get over something with a lot of these younger people in Gen Z. Do they not need to work? I really do not get it. How do you sit and order Uber Eats all day? You know how expensive that is? And sit on YouTube? Like, you don't need a job? Your parents are in the military. You're not independently wealthy. Maybe he was working. I don't know. I couldn't find any information about a job. Jimmy Donaldson had one goal: to make viral videos that would make money. Now, if it was as easy as that to make a viral video, we'd all be doing it. I also want to point out that this was very early on in the world of YouTube. Yes, there were some creators out there, but it was nothing like it is now. I'm not saying Jimmy's huge success is not due to hard work. It is. But it was also much, much easier to understand the algorithm than it is now, and it was easier to get set up and seen back then. Jimmy uploaded his very first video in February of 2012 when he was only 13 years old. I didn't even know how to hook a camera to a computer in 2012. I mean, let's be honest, I'm barely getting by now. When Jimmy posted his first video, he used the name MrBeast 6000. So he was on YouTube long before he dropped out of college and started studying the algorithm obsessively. Maybe those videos he was posting even as a teenager were making money, and that's how he was sitting on YouTube all day. The first videos MrBeast posted were called Let's Play, and he mainly focused on making videos of himself playing Minecraft and Call of Duty Black Ops. Then he started doing videos where he would estimate the wealth of other YouTubers. He also started doing commentary on drama between big YouTube creators. Drama seems to be, it is something I could not care less about. And I watch these channels start up that are drama channels and immediately get really big. And I'm like, damn, I am in the wrong thing. I am doing the wrong thing here. I'm doing everything wrong. Researching obsessively for days at a time is apparently not where it's at. I just need to sit here and talk about drama between celebrities. Honestly, I'd rather get my teeth drilled every day of the week. MrBeast really took off between 2015 and 2016 when he started doing a series called Worst Intros on YouTube. In this series, Jimmy would make fun of other creators and the intros they used on their videos. So that's cool. I mean, that seems pretty shitty to me, making fun of other people's content, but what do I know? By 2016, MrBeast had about 30,000 subs, and that's when he dropped out of college. His mother was very upset at his decision to drop out of school, and she made him move out of the family home. MrBeast's channel continued to grow, and as it did, Jimmy hired 4 of his longtime childhood friends as reappearing characters in his videos. The first to be hired was Chris Tyson, who a lot of what's happening now is due to Chris Tyson, who is a transgender person and now goes by Ava Chris Tyson. And I'm going to stop right now and say that any comment directed in a hateful manner against transgender people or the trans community will result in you being immediately blocked from my channel forever. So don't even bother. We're going to talk more about the allegations against Ava later in the episode, and they're very serious allegations of some sexual misconduct. I will say, as I have always said, there are bad people in every single race, religion, culture, community, gender, orientation, nationality, and what we are not going to do is act as if predatory behavior is a trans issue, because if you want me to start whipping out facts, statistics on who the predators are, honey, they ain't trans people, so don't even start with me. In addition to Chris Tyson, who I will refer to as Ava for the rest of this episode, because that's what this person wishes to be called, and just like when you get married and change your last name, or you want to be called by a new Muslim name if you join a religion, or you just change your name for whatever reason on earth you want, and you wish to be called this instead of that, I will respect your decision because I am not an asshole and I am also not the boss of you. You are the boss of you and you can choose to be called whatever you want. It's just not that difficult. Stop making it difficult. So we have Jimmy, MrBeast, and we have Ava. And then MrBeast brings on other close friends, Chandler Hollow, Garrett Ronalds, and Jake Franklin. Jake Franklin has been gone from the channel for 4 years now, so we are not really going to discuss him at all today. His name comes up later on in the story, but we're not going to be talking about Jake. Okay, so now comes my confession. I have never seen a single MrBeast video before I researched this episode. Not a single one. I know my kids have watched his videos, and so I sent a text in our family group chat to get their takes on MrBeast, as there is no way I can get a feel for this person in the week-long process I undertake when researching. Only one of my kids messaged back, and they basically said, from what I know, he's a really good person. He does really good things. He's helped a lot of people. And that's generally the consensus. But he's posted way too much content. I can't possibly consume it all or catch up in any way. Everything I've been able to gather, most people believe MrBeast is a good guy who has done a lot of good. And we're going to get into that. When I told my kids that there are some very serious allegations against MrBeast, they were shocked to hear that. One of my kids said, "I hate it here and everything is a lie." because she was disappointed to hear that there might be some truth to these rumors. Let's talk a little bit about the content. I watched a lot of videos getting ready for this episode, as many as I could squeeze in. And I will just tell you straight up, it's not my type of content. I think there's a generational thing there. The kid is 26 years old. I'm 54. I'm obviously not his target audience. I can see how some people would like the type of content. MrBeast and the people on his channel all strike me as just kind of dorky guys. They seem nice enough, but they seem a little bit nerdy. These are kids that obviously know what people want to see. I mean, he's the biggest YouTuber in the world. A lot of people have been entertained by this content. It's in January of 2017 that the channel explodes. MrBeast published a 23-hour video of himself counting from 1 to 100,000. The actual counting time took him 40 hours. So he did a little bit of editing and speeding up parts of the video to keep it under a day long. This was the video that did it, that blew him up. And again, I don't get it. This is not something that would appeal to me. But the video went viral and took off. But more importantly, it showed MrBeast how popular stunts were to his audience. And so Stunts it became. Next, MrBeast tried to break glass using a network of 100 megaphones daisy-chained together. So he sets up 100 megaphones, he puts up a piece of glass, screams through the megaphones, and tries to get the glass to break under the sound. After that, he sat and watched paint dry for an hour. That was the video. What am I doing here? Hey, he's the one with 300 million subs. I'm obviously in the wrong here. The next stunt, MrBeast tried staying underwater for an entire day, but he couldn't complete that stunt because physically he just couldn't do it. Then he tried spinning a fidget spinner for 24 hours straight, and that didn't work either. Next came a cross promotion with another massive creator, PewDiePie. And during this cross promotion, MrBeast did things like buying billboards and TV ads to get people to sub to PewDiePie's channel. He even bought very expensive seats at the Super Bowl for he and his friends, and they wore shirts that spelled out sub to PewDiePie, and they got on TV. So the kids thought that stunt was great. I think that's it, is they like the, back in my day when dinosaurs roamed the earth, we did prank calls. And I think this is very akin to our version of prank calls. The kids doing something funny and, something they see is kind of naughty, but it's not really. After this, the channel gets even bigger. And that's when the philanthropy starts. MrBeast starts having these tournaments where viewers can compete for cash and prizes. He starts a 501c3 organization, which is a charitable organization. He pays for schools in underdeveloped countries. He drills water wells. He delivers truckloads of food to hungry villages. He sets up solar housing for those without electricity. He buys scooters for people who need transportation. He makes and gives away hundreds of thousands of items of clothing. He is just doing it all. And to my knowledge, no one is stating that MrBeast has not done the things that he has said he did. In fact, there's video of him doing a lot of this work. He got to a point where he was making so much money, he was able to literally give money away like it was, free water. Now, of course, one could argue that philanthropy on videotape isn't philanthropy, but I don't really agree with that. I think when it's done properly, showing people acts of kindness and generosity can inspire others to get involved in kindness and generosity. I don't particularly like the word charity here because I think I have a weird view of the word charity. Charity, in my opinion, is the idea of giving freely and cheerfully and generously what we ourselves would wear, would eat, would use on our own. Charity, in my opinion, is giving when you don't have that much to give. There is a quote that my son-in-law introduced me to many years ago. A bone to the dog is not charity. Charity is the bone shared with the dog when you are just as hungry as the dog. Charity is not giving away things lesser than you would use or own yourself. And charity is not giving when you have an excess. That is generosity. But I would say MrBeast is generous. And I do think from everything I have researched in the time I dedicate to these episodes that he has done some real good. I'm going to tell you that I appreciate the good he's done. And I'm also going to tell you that I really don't care for the content that put him in the position to do the good he's doing. And I do think there is part of him that has a guilty conscience that drives the philanthropy. You can disagree with me if you want, but here's why I feel this way. Many of the earlier MrBeast episodes that went viral and made him all the money and got him all the subs are of people doing very degrading and dehumanizing things for a chance at winning money. These are people who are very clearly struggling and in desperate need of cash. And so MrBeast comes along and says, I will give you the opportunity to win some money if you do this embarrassing thing or that difficult thing. Sometimes it almost comes off like he's bored. Like the challenge starts off with a bunch of people jumping on one foot, and the last person still on one foot without falling gets the money. And then it's like MrBeast gets bored and he starts throwing things at the people hopping on one foot to win the money. Then he starts like shaking them or screaming in their faces. It's just not my thing. Like I say, I'm old. My kids say I'm getting sentimental in my old age, but I am just not a fan of that kind of content. I think it's a little cruel. I'm very happy that he's done a lot of good with the money that he's made. But again, I do think that generosity might be a little driven by a sense of right that lives inside of him, a sense of right that has maybe become a little skewed over time. I hope I'm not going out on a limb when I say that this kid comes off as a pretty decent human being. Do I agree with everything he's said and done? I don't. But I think at his heart, he seems like a good guy. So when did the trouble start and what happened? From time to time, there have been some complaints about MrBeast. This giveaway didn't happen like people wanted it to. This tournament didn't go as planned. But that is to be expected with such a large corporation. Sometimes things don't always go perfectly, and we all know how easy it is for people to get mad and go to the internet and start complaining. It takes nothing. And I don't get the vibe that when those complaints took place that MrBeast was a bully. I think that's the difference to me. I think that's what makes him a better person. When someone has power, power is different than wealth. Power is the ability to choose. And MrBeast definitely has power. When someone has power and they choose to use that power to be a bully, to bully someone who does not have an equal amount of power, that to me is the true judge of character. That's a shitty human being. When someone who has power lords that power over the heads of others and refuses to compromise, refuses to put themselves in someone else's shoes, to acquiesce, to form an understanding, that is a person of low character. And from what I have seen, when things didn't go right on MrBeast's channel, he tried to make it right. I didn't see him being a bully. I didn't see him overly apologizing. I just saw him kind of moving on and trying to do better next time, which that works for me. The ship would then right itself and everyone would go on with their lives. That was until last month. Everything would change in the hot summer days of 2024. MrBeast, Jimmy Donaldson, remember this guy is only 26 years old right now. That is very, very young. He comes to his audience and he announces that Ava Tyson has been removed from the cast of all MrBeast videos. Ava will no longer be a part of MrBeast. For many, this came as a shock, but for others, it was a long time coming. An unnamed person has made some very serious allegations against Ava Tyson. The allegations center around claims that Chris Tyson, Chris before the transition, groomed a child. How? By sending inappropriate messages to that child. That is the claim. I have not found any information stating that anything physical or sexual in nature happened between Ava and this child. The media calls them a minor. I say child because that's what they are. Minor is a legal term. I like people to remember they are children. Ava is now 28 years old. These allegations go back to 2016. The allegation is that Ava, then Chris, was 20 years old and was interacting online and exchanging messages that included sexual content with a child that used the name Lava GS. This child was supposedly 13 years old when Ava was 20. Now, Ava has denied these allegations, but she has also stated she has learned that her sense of humor is not acceptable around children and that she cannot change who she was, but that she is working on herself and she's learned a lot from this situation. It's also important to note that Lava GS, the child who is now an adult, well, let's see, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, it would barely be 21 years old. Lava has stated, quote, "I am not a victim. Nothing bad happened between me and Chris. People are creating lies around my name." Apparently, Lava was a big fan of MrBeast and the cast of characters on the channel. This puts Ava in a position of power. Lava was a fan and Ava was the creator, the person with the following. Grooming involves an imbalance of power, and it's very important that we recognize that. It doesn't mean it has to be a boss and an employee. It can be any imbalance of power. So whether Lava feels they were groomed or not, it matters, but it is not the only thing that matters. Sometimes victims of grooming do not recognize the fact that they've been groomed. Lava and Chris would speak on a server, and they formed a friendship. During that time, there were some conversations that were somewhat sexual in nature. Apparently, Ava Chris is really into hentai, which is like an anime form of pornography, and they would send images like that to this kid. And even though it's a cartoon, it is still considered sexual material. Now, like I said, I'm from Gen X. Back in my day, this was called banter. And you guys know that I am the first person to say some people take things too far. I am so sick and tired of hearing about boundaries and listening to people compete over who has the worst childhood trauma because their parent did this or their parent did that. While there are people with actual childhood trauma locked in closets and getting their asses beat over here. The people with the actual trauma are over here like, I can't afford therapy. And then the people with, regular trauma are just spewing therapy words at everybody. I'm so over it. I can't tell you how over it I am. I am so sick and tired of people competing to see who can be the most offended and the most traumatized, the most put upon. It is exhausting. But with that said, I am also going to say that I am glad things aren't like they were when I grew up. I saw kids get straight up abused by adults out in the open on a regular basis. We had this disgusting teacher that was having sex with children at the high school. You know what happened to him? He was politely and quietly asked to quit. And then he went to Vegas and started teaching, and he did the same thing at a Vegas high school. And do you know what Vegas did with him? They threw his ass in prison because bigger cities don't tolerate the shit that smaller towns do. Grooming is not okay. I was groomed throughout my entire existence in the Mormon church. I am finally going to tell that story next week. And there are different kinds of grooming. The grooming I experienced is not the same way a pedophile would groom a victim, but any kind of grooming is not okay. So if Ava was grooming this person, it is not okay, and she should be removed from the channel. MrBeast has announced that he has hired a third-party investigative company to look into the allegations against Ava and that he will disclose what the company finds. He's trying to be transparent, and I appreciate that. 6 days after the allegations against Ava were made public, MrBeast suffered another big blow. An employee of MrBeast came forward and stated that the huge giveaways and elaborate challenges that have made the channel so popular are, I don't know if he's saying they're fake, but they are not what they appear to be. This employee states that the challenges are not authentic. They're made to look like a real giveaway, but in the end, the winner does not actually get all of the prizes. When these allegations came out, one of MrBeast's team members that goes by Chucky took to Twitter and said, The employee making these allegations was on my team. We do not fake giveaways. I have been hands-on with some of them and personally been the person to contact the winners and get with our accounting department to make sure they get paid. I quickly want to debunk some of the info in this video since the guy who made the accusations was on my team. This is a wild statement that can easily be proven wrong. MrBeast himself has not publicly addressed the accusations about this part of the scandal yet. And it gets a little worse. A third former employee of MrBeast that is known only by the username DogPack404, but has been vetted by Newsweek as an actual employee, has accused MrBeast of hosting illegal lotteries. There are very strict rules that govern lotteries, as you know. And this former employee is stating that MrBeast is not following those rules. So, okay, yeah, I guess that's something for the attorneys to look into. I don't really care much about this, I'm not gonna lie. But there is another very serious allegation made by DogPack404, and that is that MrBeast has knowingly hired registered sex offenders in the past. Dogpack says, quote, well, there was a known sex offender, a registered sex offender, convicted sex offender on the registry, and everyone knew he worked there. Now, this is kind of a big deal to me because MrBeast works closely with children. A lot of his giveaways and the philanthropic work he does is closely associated with children. So to have a registered sex offender on the payroll around children when people do not know there's a registered sex offender around the kids, to me, that's a big deal. Now, do you remember back at the beginning of the episode when I said MrBeast hired 4 friends? One of them's name was Jake Franklin, and he left the channel in 2020, so we weren't going to talk about him. Jake comes forward and states that the person Dogpack is talking about, the sex offender that Dogpack is talking about, is his brother-in-law. Jake says that yes, his brother-in-law goes by Delaware on the channel and that he is in fact a registered sex offender. Jake goes on to say that when Delaware was 21 years old, a 16-year-old girl accused him and others of sexually assaulting her when she was 11 years old. Delaware took a plea deal and there was no jail time given, but he still has to register as a sex offender, even though he was maybe 16 or 17 years old. So I'm not sure how that works. Laws vary from state to state, but this must have been something serious because they required a teenager to register as a sex offender. The records, of course, will be sealed on this because he was a juvenile, but Jake posted this tweet. I want you to read this. And pause it right here if you'd like, explaining the entire situation. So now we've got kind of all kinds of accusations going on, and they've all been since the end of July. As if this wasn't enough, some old videos of Jimmy Donaldson, now the world-famous MrBeast, resurfaced. Jimmy is a teenager in the videos, and he uses the N-word, and he also uses some homophobic slurs. Dear Lord, I am so happy there was no internet when I was a kid. I can honestly say I have never in my life used a racial slur. Never. Not once. But I will tell you, there is a very funny story from my neighborhood about... We had this family that lived 2 houses down from us, and there was only one girl and like 8 boys, and the girl was my best friend. And the boys were just like heathens. And one day we were sitting in church. It is dead quiet, not a sound being made. They're passing the sacrament. And one of her little brothers gets in a fight with the other one and just screams at the top of his lungs a homophobic word that means a bundle of sticks. And when I tell this story to my gay friends, they think it's hilarious. But right now, if that happened, I mean, that whole family would be canceled, you know? We used to use that word and we had no idea what it meant. And honestly, I don't think I knew what it meant until I was probably 20 years old. You guys must think I'm nuts, but I was very, very sheltered and I was very naive. And I didn't want to act like I didn't know what words meant. So when the other kids used them or older kids or whatever, I would never ask. And there was no internet to go and look up what does this word mean, you know? I'm probably the wrong person to ask about stuff like this. There's a difference to me. This is probably going to get me in trouble, but hi, how are you? Have you met me? There's a difference to me in being a young, dumb kid that says something awful, trying to get a reaction, and being like a 17, 18-year-old that's saying something awful, knowing full well it's horrific and doing it anyway. That's my opinion. Is it ever okay to use a slur of any kind? Absolutely not. I mean, half my hometown won't talk to me because I sided with the Native American community and wanted the name of my high school changed from the Red Men. Oh, I hate it here and everything's a lie. Because white people aren't the ones that should be making those decisions. I try to be very sensitive, and I also try to STFU and listen to those in communities I am not a part of when they need the floor. It is never okay to use a slur. I am also not a fan of crucifying someone for doing something stupid they did as a kid, especially if they own it and are sorry and know it was wrong. I don't need a crying video. I don't need I'm leaving the internet saga. And I don't need a 5-page, 6-hour drawn-out apology. Just say, you know what? I screwed up. I did a shitty thing and I won't do it again. That's good enough for me. And if it's not good enough for someone else, you better be perfect. That's all I have to say, because that's some bad karma. If somebody genuinely asks for forgiveness and you don't give it, you're asking for whatever it is you believe in to rain hellfire and damnation on you, because you should take an apology. Now, before I get into what I consider to be some of the most serious accusations against MrBeast, I just want to skim over some of the most ridiculous. Someone always has to be the stupidest person in the room, right? What would we do without the dumbest person in the room? Some religious wackos are claiming that MrBeast is famous and successful. Why? Because of the devil, the good old devil. What would we do without the devil? They're saying that even his name, MrBeast, is a tip-off, a tip of the hat to the beast himself. I guess MrBeast used to say he was religious, but lately he has said he's agnostic. He's no longer religious. And so what does that mean? That means that he sold his soul to the devil and he is satanic. MrBeast is only successful because he's satanic. Remember his buddy Chandler that was on the channel? Well, Chandler is apparently making up for the demonic side of MrBeast, because now Chandler is some sort of like born again religious fanatic, and he does nothing but get on social media and read the Bible. Like I say, the extremists are getting more and more extreme, but some people have taken this to mean that Chandler is trying to counterbalance MrBeast's satanic practices by reading the Bible online. I can't.
MrBeast, also known as Jimmy Donaldson, is the world's biggest YouTuber, with 147 million subscribers at the time of recording. Naturally, this constitutes one of the most significant influences on any audience anywhere in the entire world. This is not an exaggeration, and it seems that MrBeast at one point wanted to use his massive reach for the good of Christian values. He once commented the following message, quote, "Thank you for watching me, and I will always show my faith somehow on this channel," end quote. At one point early in his channel's history, MrBeast had various channel banners with a cross and a Bible verse. But it seems that he has now completely and totally abandoned the faith that he once professed. Here's a clip of him on Logan Paul's podcast explaining that he is now an agnostic who does not believe in Jesus. Watch this.
Not religious.
At all?
No, I'm not.
What about that Jesus?
No.
He's saying no.
Yeah, like,
Are you atheist?
You just asked the same question different ways. The answer's the same.
Atheist or agnostic?
Agnostic. Like, I mean, the universe is complex, and like, it's hard to believe someone didn't do it, but like.
Anyway, let's get to the things that are actually pretty upsetting. And those are the accusations that MrBeast is mistreating people. This feels to me like a little bit of a takedown, but these allegations are pretty serious. It all started quite innocently. And as we so often see, when the dam gets a crack in it, it often breaks. And that kind of feels like what's happening to MrBeast right now. He started something called Beast Games, which, like many of his other contests, involved, contestants. This particular contest has something to do with Amazon. It's an Amazon production. Some of the contestants are speaking out about deplorable conditions they were forced to live under while participating in Beast Games. And it is a bit disturbing. I'm going to play you parts of 3 quick videos breaking down some of the allegations. I'm going to play them at 1.5 times speed because I have the attention span of a gnat and I want to get the information to you without it taking too long. So watch these really quickly.
MrBeast has been exposed for the abuse and mistreatment of his contestants, and it's about time that you guys realize that this guy is not what he seems. It's the fact that I have been saying this for the the longest time, but it takes the hospitalization of actual people for you guys to finally clock it. You need to read this is absolutely insane.
Were only fed 400-calorie meals per 12 hours. I don't know if this is the Hunger Games, I don't know if this is North Korea, but last time I checked, it's none of that. Obviously, this caused a lot of tension and caused a lot of fighting amongst the contestants. A lot of it resulting in stealing, fighting, and literal hoarding. Water was also very scarce and continually running out, causing most of the contestants having to be dehydrated during the entire thing. Is this slavery? And it was so bad that people were having seizures because they were not given the medication that they needed. The contestants were also sleep deprived and were only allowed to sleep for 3 to 4 hours. And I don't know if you guys know that, but that's literal torture.
These people are genuinely upset about how things are going. They're scared for not only their own safety, but the safety of their friends who are still competing. They aren't doing this out of spite. They're doing this because they are afraid for themselves and for their friends. I was a contestant until the end. I also didn't accept their hush money. It was really bad. People were having seizures because they were not getting medication, even though we were promised we would. And it was 100% rigged. They presented it as though the game would be like Squid Games, basically a type of game show where all the games are an even playing field. That was not at all the case. All the games were about speed and strength, so only the young athletic males were at an advantage over the women, and elderly people were also casted. To make things worse, men started realizing that they could take out the women without being eliminated. Guys started tackling and hitting women. 2 girls were tackled and passed out on the field and were dragged off to continue filming. I saw people with broken bones, stitches, etc., and most were women. We were given maybe 400 calories a meal and only fed every 12 hours. Food would run out and people would fight over, steal, and hoard food. Water was scarce and kept running out as well.
What do you think about this? As I always ask during these stories, why should we care? Well, obviously, this isn't someone being hurt to the extent of, a child growing up in an abusive cult or something like that, but it's not great either. I would be lying if I said I was as passionate about this kind of a scandal as I am about exposing child abusers and cults and killers and things like that. But I still think things like this are worth talking about for the same reasons more dangerous issues are worth talking about. If MrBeast has problematic team members, that's easy to deal with. They're fired and they go away. Reparations are made if required. That's fine. If he has said some awful words as a kid and he's sorry, that can be made right as well. I have a much bigger problem, not with the scandal, but rather with the content that made this creator so big, he can be involved in a scandal. Sometimes problems start out small. Creators like MrBeast like to push the boundaries. That's obvious. They go for shock value. They go for the quick view grab that will make them the most money and that will get them the most attention. They are modern day snake oil salesmen in that regard. Nothing new here, nothing to blame the internet for. These people have always existed. I think the problem is now they have access to such a larger audience. And with that access comes the ability to hurt more people in a shorter amount of time. How important is that to you? Does it matter to you if people like MrBeast take advantage of people hard up for cash that are willing to do anything for money? I personally think it sucks. This is why his content doesn't appeal to me. But you also have to keep in mind, I was born and raised in a church that now has $120 billion that doesn't do much to help other people. I have, a personal problem with people who defend a dragon sleeping on its gold. I don't get it. Is MrBeast a dragon sleeping on a pile of gold? Why do people want to watch those suffering degrade themselves in a contest? Why do we allow the sleeping dragon to keep its gold when we could easily slay it? And why do we find it entertaining to watch people struggle when we could stop their struggling? I guess these are the questions I have and why it matters to me. Am I being too sensitive? I want to know what you think about all of this. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Please hit the like button if you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me. You can listen to my podcasts. This one's Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Every Monday and Wednesday, new episodes. This one's Dining with Death. This is an archival series. These are all older stories, but they're still good. I want you to know how much I appreciate you. I want you to take care of yourselves, and I want you to know how much I look forward to talking with you guys every week. Sometimes I'm a little slow to answer in the comments, but I'm just very, very busy making new content, so forgive me. Take care of yourselves and be kind to each other, and I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee.